It's 2002, and Liz and I are hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. More than 2,500 miles through deserts and across mountain ranges from Mexico to Canada. I'm Simon Willis, and I lost these recordings only to find them 20 years later. Now Adzpctko is supporting this podcast series, but back then Henry Shires had only just started the business and we were using one of his early designs. It's Saturday the 27th of April, and somewhere in this crowd we'll meet Henry for the first time.
We started hiking the Pacific Crest Trail 9 days ago. We managed to get more than 100 miles. Now we're back one day from the start. This is the annual Day Zero Pacific Crest Trail kickoff. It's a big gathering. There's quite a community around hikers in America, and on the Appalachian Trail, they've been doing this for quite a while. They have a big get-together to try to get this year's group, which leave in a fairly limited window, off and answer any questions first-time hikers might have. This is the fourth time they've done this for the Pacific Crest Trail, and it is growing. It is growing bigger and bigger and bigger. There's a sea of shelters in front of me of all different shapes and sizes, and there's quite a competition to design the lightest and most effective. We have one of the newest, designed by a guy called Henry Shires, and I'm hoping to meet him somewhere here today.
A long trail takes years to basically analyze what effect it is on you.
This is Ron.
I hiked the Appalachian Trail in 1977. Okay, it was a pivotal point in my life, you know. I just turned 25, and, you know, it was way back when. And it took 10 years before I understood the effect that that trail had on my life, in terms of my outlook on things, in terms of my ability to handle problems, in terms of my ability to say, okay, I can do this even though I don't know how to do it, you know. You know, the ability to have confidence that you can take on a situation even though you believe fundamentally you can't do it. You know, it gives you that. If you survive the trail and you make it to the end, it gives you a certain amount of confidence to do other things that aren't related to a trail, to take on projects where you would normally think that, no, this is beyond me. Because a trail is something, one of those things that when you've never done one, 2,000 miles just seems incomprehensible.
Yeah, but it's more fun. I mean, if you keep hiking, you stay young. You really do. So there.
So you're how old, Marge?
75.
So come on, you give me some advice, because I'd never used a tarp. Well, this is our first time using tarps.
All right, this is really not a tarp, because it's more of with a foot in it like that. It becomes a tarp halfway tent.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Henry calls it a tarp tent. The guy who designed
and when Henry first came out with his a couple of years ago, everybody copied him, and that's what we copied. And my daughter made one also. Right. But now we're getting a little more sophisticated, and every year they come out with something new. So I was told on the tarp tents, always put your poles at an angle to the center, and it makes your ridgeline taut. Okay. But now I want one with a floor in it. Especially when they start talking about snakes about them.
Yeah, we're told there's quite a few rattlesnakes along the PCT. Did you see any in the sections that you've been doing?
Yeah, but normally you walk with caution. You're aware they're there. And I hike with poles, and I'm always looking ahead to see if they're laying on the trail. And I'm always listening.
Yeah.
And
if they start rattling, if you hear a rattle,
then I hear one, I back off, you know, and let the man, or if it won't move, I throw a little sand that way. Yeah. Because they don't have eyebrows.
Yeah, I heard actually a bit of sand.
It's just a bit of sand, and they just kind of go away off the trail.
Hi, are you Henry?
Yeah.
Simon Willis.
Simon, how are you?
Very well.
Nice
Great to meet you eventually.
Yeah.
Top tent.
There you go.
It wasn't on the T-shirt. I figured you wouldn't be wearing a T-shirt on a day like this. It worked really well. We used it for the first time in the rain last night.
Yeah. Held up?
Held up real well.
Good.
Very impressive.
Good.
How about you? Where have you been today?
We hiked from Campbell yesterday, and we spent the night up on the ridge.
There's been quite a bit of interest, people coming by and asking about ours, so I've been telling them Adzpctko is the place to go.
Yeah, that's the place. Well, and the hike's going well for you, it sounds like?
Yeah, it's going very well actually, but this weather's a bit weird, isn't it?
It's very strange.
What else do we need to know, Henry?
Stay away from Americans.
They're worse than the best.
Oh, we really got off to a bad start then, haven't we? What was for you, I mean, when you were doing this, what was the thing that you kept in your head? Did you ever have any times you think you ought to...
For me, I was very, very focused. It was about getting to Canada.
And use that as a goal?
Absolutely, yeah. But in a way it was bad, in a way it was good. In a way, good because I was so incredibly focused the whole way. And I've never been more focused in my life than I was about this hike. Bad in the sense that it restricted me from doing some things that I wish I maybe had done, such as climbing some peaks along the way. And I worried that I would get injured. I worried that if I had injured myself climbing a peak along the way, that I wouldn't have forgiven myself for not being able to finish the hike because I injured myself doing something that was not directly hike related.
Do you think it's bad that we're not focused like that, Liz?
No, everyone's different. We all have different motives and ways of doing it. I couldn't be that focused about anything, I don't think. I think coming from England, it's a bit different because it's a hike.
Yeah.
The fact that it goes from Mexico to Canada isn't a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a walk. But living in America, it's kind of got more significance.
I was wondering the other day as we were plodding along whether actually I wanted to hike the Pacific Crest Trail or I wanted to have hiked the Pacific Crest Trail, if you know what I mean. And I think we decided we actually wanted to. We did want to hike it, didn't we? We were really enjoying bits, and because we were stopping a lot and enjoying it.
And I also think, for me, I was a solo hiker.
Yeah,
and I think that
true.
very much drove what I was doing and what I was all about. I think had I hiked with a partner the whole way, I think it would have been a very different hike.
Yeah, I have somebody to share it with, and sharing it with each other, we can look across the sunset and go, that was good. Bob Rees is one of the people behind this kick-off. You're to blame.
Yes, yeah, I take the credit or the blame as the case may be.
What was the whole idea behind it?
Tom Reynolds was a frequent contributor to the mailing list. And he just initiated the whole thing by saying on the last Saturday in April in 1999, he said, I'm going to set up camp here at Lake Marina, put down some burgers and hot dogs and beer and wine, and anybody who wants to come is welcome.
I wanted to come here just to see what it was like, but there's more to it than that, isn't it? For the thru hikers, for the potential thru hikers, it's perhaps to try to take away some of the nerves, some of the doubts by speaking to people who've done it before.
Because Meadow Ed, listen to Meadow Ed's talk. It's totally informal, but he holds court. He tells everybody where the water is and what to do. Tom gave him a lot of advice. Maybe you saw the bear canister demonstration, and there's a lot of good advice in there. And you got a lot of people, AT veterans, and they're hiking the PCT.
That's the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And they have to learn that the PCT is not the AT on the West Coast. It's completely different. And we got people here who have no guidebook, no town guide, no plan, and they have the notion that they can buy groceries every 2 or 3 days in a grocery store alongside the trail, and they can't. There are I believe there's a stretch north of Yosemite. It was 180 miles between roads.
Somebody was saying to me that this is the time to hike the Pacific Crest Trail because not just the time of the year, but the time, because the infrastructure's there now, the trail's there, and yet, despite a couple hundred people, it's not really become crowded in the way that the AT has. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, I agree with that. There might be 300 starters who intend to thru hike in a year, and probably 180 finish, successful on a thru hike. Somebody can call me a liar or an exaggerator, but I've seen it written that more people have summited Mount Everest than hiked this trail end to end. And I think that's probably true.
Now, this is Meadow Ed. The statistician.
I'm the statistician of the trail.
Yeah.
I've been out here since 1995, hiking the trail and paying attention to the hikers and following the hikers. And every year I have journals where people actually sign in my journal. I take pictures of people.
You don't go back to 1982, do you? Because that's when my friend did it.
Yes, we do.
Chris Townsend?
Oh, I know Chris.
Yeah?
I know Chris. I got I have pictures of Chris Townsend right here in my van today.
Really?
Yeah, but it will take me a minute to find it, but I have pictures of Chris
He lives up not far from Aviemore.
72?
No, 82 he did it in.
82.
Chris Townsend, there he is.
So see, when you ask me, you know, but I can tell you that was a above average year for snowpack.
Where do most people quit?
It's hard to say where. They always consider Wrightwood to be the first real place that people quit. A lot of people with past experiences come out here and they don't know about the desert and they can't take the desert. And we've had them do one day and come right here to Lake Marina and quit right here because the desert heat gets them. Today it's raining out. We've had rain for 2 days here and it's cold. But if it's 95 degrees right here and people have been carrying water, they come in, they're physically exhausted and they quit right here.
If you're going to use, one other thing, you also have...
This is the How to Pack a Bear Canister demonstration. They are secure containers to protect food in bear country, which, if we're honest, very few of us are carrying. But we all want to save space and weight in our packs, so we're watching a comparison of the relative merits of bulkier shaped pasta, shells and swirls, compared to spaghetti. I kid you not.
One looks about twice as big as the other, right? Now let's see which has more food value. We'll go over our trusty scale. Okay, so this is approximately 50% more calories.
Which makes me rather relieved that we have actually got spaghetti rather than any other sort of pasta. You're going forehead to forehead with a llama. Oh, yeah. Oh, aren't you? I smell the cheese I've just eaten, aren't you? Is he nibbling? Oh, he's nibbling my hair. They're not nearly as tall as you imagine, are they?
No, not that big, really.
Yeah, smaller than their camel cousins. What is it about them? Why do you like packing with llamas?
Shoulders feel better at the end of the day.
They carry all the stuff. They don't do damage to the trail the way the horse hoofs do because they have a soft pad on their foot instead of a hoof. And their droppings are much less offensive than horses, and they try to do it off the trail even, which is amazing.
You got two different answers there. My answer was why anything, and hers was why a llama. And it all started, 96, 300 miles of sore shoulders.
Yeah.
And I've spent time rebuilding backpacks, trying to reduce this, not successfully. And that's the answer to sore shoulders.
All these people there trying to go ultralight and weigh their rucksacks. This is it. Just buy a 400-pound llama.
Something that's built to carry something. The human being is not built to carry a load.
Since everyone at this place is kind of obsessed with the weight of their packs, they have a competition to see who can design, well, the best homemade gear. Liz came up with this idea so we can carry a heavier weight in our packs. And there are little fins that slide down our waist belt. Now, she won't have anything to do with this contest. But I said, oh, come on, we should enter. You never know. So I've put our name down. We'll see what happens.
Latex nipples. So we have 8 ounces of almond butter.
Someone is demonstrating his revolutionary means of carrying nut butters, which looks suspiciously like a baby bottle liner.
My system. Are there any questions?
Why don't you eat it?
It might help you suck on it. Stick your finger in. I hadn't thought of that, Greg. It'd be a mess because it would squeeze out. Yeah, it'd squeeze out.
Right, as you may or may not know, ultralight hiking has yet to hit the UK. But we're learning a lot over here. So this was a pretty much standard Go Light Gust, okay? We were using these last year in Corsica, and when we got over about 30 pounds, they start to get uncomfortable. That's all your food, and we're doing like 10 days worth of food. I would not have been able to carry it remotely comfortably in this sack had it not been for these little things. And they are just ridge rest and duct tape. Slip one of these on, slide them forward onto the crest of iliac here,
And that makes the world of difference. Now, I weighed these, and the total weight of these is 3.6 ounces, and it adds 10 pounds to the carrying weight of this sack. I just think that's quite a useful thing. Now, on the way in, we flew into Denver, and so I called in to see them at Go Light, and their designer took one of these away for an hour and photocopied it. So if you see this next year in Go Light's workbook, you know it came from the UK. Thank you.
I did not win, but I am going to get the chance to speak to, currently, the most famous hiker in America. He's the first person to hike in one calendar year the 3 long-distance trails that make up the Triple Crown: Appalachian, Continental Divide, and Pacific Crest Trail. He's flying Brian Robinson.
That's about 7,400 miles, give or take a few.
And the elevation gain?
Total elevation gain, if you count the ups and the downs, is somewhere between 1 million and 1.5 million feet.
And you're still standing?
I'm still standing. My knees are still working.
Was it just to try to set a record, or was there more to it than that?
I was certainly aware that nobody had ever done it, and I needed a challenge of that magnitude in my life. But as most hikers will tell you, we get much more out of the wilderness experience than a record. It does things for our soul that we can only explain to other hikers. And I and other mega hikers, if you will, know that and understand that. And we are able to actually do both. We have that deep spiritual connection to the wilderness, or we couldn't be out for what in my case was 300 days without that connection. But some of us also are goal-oriented. Some of us also have the ability to plan, organize, and execute an expedition of that magnitude, and really want to, and that's part of the fun as well. But it takes both.
I get the feeling that on something like that, it really was, you call it an expedition. You really would have to organize it. We thought we put a lot of organization into just our food drops and stuff, but...
Any through hike is an expedition. It requires a lot of planning because things are going to go wrong, and you want to have as few of those kinds of things happen as possible because everyone costs you time. And on a through hike like you're doing on the Pacific Crest Trail, you are essentially in a race with next winter. You've got to get to Washington and Manning Park before next winter sets in the North Cascades. And you'll know that all year, and every time something goes wrong and you're off hitchhiking, finding resupplies and a new whatever, you're going to realize that, the clock is ticking, and you're not having fun handling the problems when you could be out on the trail. And in my case, I needed to maintain a tremendously high average miles per day, and every time...
How many?
The key part was the high mountains of the northern Pacific Crest Trail through Northern California, Oregon, and Washington, and the high mountains of the Rockies through Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, and Colorado. There's about 4,000 miles of trails there that absolutely has to be done in the summer because it's inaccessible in the wintertime. You just can't get in there. And that has to be done in 4 months. 1,000 miles in 4 months is about 33 miles a day, which is, for UK people, that's 50 kilometers a day, average.
Oh, we're still in miles, actually, but that's steep terrain as well.
Yeah.
Which was the greater challenge for you? Tell me, was it physical? Because I guess you can train your body to a certain extent,
yes.
Or was it mental?
Well, I liken the physical challenge to like the ante in a poker game. You don't get in if you can't do that, and it's not easy. I'm not going to tell anybody it's easy, but it's not as hard as most people think it is. You work your way up to it slowly. The body adapts, and you can do it if you're in reasonably good shape. The mental is much harder, especially in my case. The fact that it had never been done, and most people said it was impossible. The fact that there was nobody who was trying it the same year, so there was nobody to hike with. And anybody that I met who wanted to hike with me, even through hikers in really good shape, could not maintain the average miles per day that I was doing for very long.
Is that because you trained so hard?
That was because I had trained to such a level. I did that training during the hike. For instance, I came here to the beginning of the Pacific Crest Trail at about the 1/3 point of my hike last year. And I was hoping that I would have a good through hiker choose to hike with me for at least the whole PCT. And the truth is, there were people here last year that could have done that, but they were on day one of their hikes, and I was in the middle. So I left here averaging 30 miles a day, and I literally outpaced everybody. Now, there are people that by the end of their hike were doing that kind of mileage, and those were people that I met here that wanted to hike with me, but they couldn't do it from day one because I had already had 4 months of training.
So you're also saying the mental training, the mental side of it was because they couldn't keep up with you, that was when it became rather solitary, presumably.
That's why I was in a situation where the mental challenge was the hardest thing for me, because I basically had to be living a hermit's life for 10 months, and I'm a very social person. I had to deal with isolation, basically. I like solo hiking. I like getting out and getting away from people and exploring the wilderness one-on-one. But anybody who's done that for more than about 2 weeks realizes then you want to go home.
Yeah.
And I had to...
Or you want to turn around to somebody and say, wasn't that sunset fantastic?
Exactly,
You want to share it.
You want to share it. And I had a great time. It was, I don't want people to think that I was suffering, but the hardest part was dealing with the isolation. Yeah. That's what was really hard.
How difficult was what I think they call re-entry? I mean, especially after something like this, because you were pursued by the media up the end of the Appalachian Trail.
Well, there was a couple of different kinds of re-entry. There was the re-entry which I was always expecting, which is going from being alone all the time, in the wilderness, to what we call the so-called real world, with the hustle and bustle and the cars and the traffic and the people and. That can be difficult in the sense that the cars and the traffic and the noise is unsettling. The people is wonderful. I liken that to taking a hot bath. That just feels wonderful to suddenly have people around. Overall, that re-entry was relatively easy. The harder part was the fact that my trip made me a minor celebrity, and I did not expect that. And I could tell that it had happened during the hike, but I couldn't really tell the magnitude to which it had happened. As soon as I got off the trail, I was besieged with phone calls and interview requests, and I spent a full month, almost full time, just dealing with media. And to go into that situation from being this isolated solo hiker for almost a year was a very difficult re-entry, and it was a re-entry that most thru hikers will not have to face, thank God. But that was difficult.
What do you get asked most at gatherings like this? Because we've got a couple of hundred people here, and there's nothing quite like this, I suppose. This is the kickoff, and you've got half of us kind of nervous because we're looking ahead, and you've done it, and you've done more, and others who have done it themselves.
Most thru hikers or potential thru hikers know an awful lot about what I went through, so they don't ask the typical questions. Because but most people that aren't hikers will ask me is, how many pairs of shoes did you go through, and did you see any wild animals, and how did you deal with the bears? The same things that a hiker that goes on a week-long hike might be asked. I get asked. The people that are thru hikers know that this is at a different level, and so they do ask deeper questions. And most of them ask the really good ones, which was, how did you deal with the fact that was probably impossible? How did you deal with 4 months of winter on the AT? How did you deal with days when you didn't want to get up? Do your knees still work? Because they know the wear and tear that your body goes through.
Do the knees still work after all that?
My knees are still 100%. I've been very, very lucky with the knees that I was dealt in life. They're in good shape. I take care of them, but I did not have any knee problems, and I didn't have any really severe physical problems. I had a sprained ankle and an infected toe and a few things like that. But overall, mechanically, after all those miles, I'm in sound condition. Although I am definitely taking time off this year to make sure I get fully rested and recovered, because I know the kind of miles I was putting in is probably not good on a continuous basis. The body needs rest as well as stress, and I know that better than anyone.
You're writing the book at the moment.
I am.
And then are you going to go back to... You in computers, I seem to remember reading.
Yeah, I'm a systems engineer, a computer engineer in Silicon Valley.
Would you go back to that?
I might. I had to quit my job to do my hike last year, and I haven't gone back yet because I've been busy and because I did save up some money. And I may never go back because I kind of got into hiking from that environment because I knew I liked it more. And I'm not sure I can ever fully go back and give it my all. And a job like that, you've either got to dive in and just do it and love it, or you really can't do it. It's not a halfway kind of a job. So I may not go back.
See, I haven't left my job behind. I've got it with me.
Yeah.
That's terrible, isn't it? Really?
Well, your job is portable in that sense.
It's good in that sense.
And if you love it, then more power to you. I did love my job as an engineer in Silicon Valley, but it's incompatible pretty much with my life as a hiker.
And do you think there's a hiking life past this? Because that's the dangers. Once you've done the Triple Crown, it's like, well,
what's next?
Yeah. I remember speaking to the Crane brothers when they ran the Himalayas. It was like, oh. Yeah. And then they took the bikes up Kilimanjaro. Then it was like, what are we going to do next?
What next? Yeah. Well, I am a goal-oriented person, but I don't think, at least to this point, and I've been back for about 6 months now, that I ever need to do a goal of that magnitude again. I've done my ultimate challenge, and I think in terms of challenges, I don't think I need another huge challenge. I might do another big trek, and it might be fairly monumental, but I don't think it'll be because of the challenge. It'll be because I love it, and that's different. That means that I'm in a really good place. That means now that I can go hiking and walking and be around hiking people and just enjoy the hiking life at a slower pace, because I did this because I love it, and that's why I was successful.
But it must be nice to have that little place big place in hiking history here in the United States.
It is, but if I was the kind of person that needed that accolades and that was my motivation, I would not have been able to do what I did. What I did required so much solo hiking, so much communing with nature, so much spiritual journey to get me through, that if I was the kind of person that was doing it for the celebrity, I would have failed. And so I have it, and I accept it, and it is abnormal for a hiker or a hiker personality to really be comfortable in a situation, but I accept it, and I'm very proud of what I did. That is very true, but not in a public sense. That's in a very private sense, and I'll always have that, and that's really neat. I have this goal that I achieved, and not many people in life can say they dreamt their wildest dream, gave up everything else in life to try it, and then succeeded. That just feels great.
There's a couple of hundred hikers, I think, who want to speak to Flying Brian. I've had to let you go. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
It's 7:15 in the evening, and the kickoff is winding down. Just had a big barbecue, typical American fare, beef burgers and hot dogs, lots of relishes, and veggie burgers for those who don't eat meat. It's really been quite a good day. It started odd. It started like a whole lot of people who just really wanted to stand around and talk gear in the rain, and that seemed a bit like, goodness me, if we come all this way for this, are we missing a day on the trail for this? But it kind of picked up, and it's strange, but there is a real community spirit. There is a real giving here and a genuine desire to help people. And it's quite nice, actually. It's not something that you see in the outdoors community that often in the UK. Probably because you don't see anything quite like this. There's a lot of laughter now. The gear competition was very funny. Some very innovative ideas. I had a go, didn't win anything, but there you go. And we're now... we're going to leave. A lot of people will be heading off from here in the morning, starting their Pacific Crest Trail. We started a while ago, so we're going to get our lift back to Warner Springs, and we'll camp somewhere right by the road, and tomorrow we'll be walking again.
And as we walk all the way to the Sierras, we'll meet some of the legendary trail angels of the Pacific Crest Trail and hear their stories.
And so they tell us, they said, you know what this is? This is trail magic.
Our thanks to Tarptent.com, who supported our hike and who, 20 years later, are supporting this podcast. If you are enjoying it, perhaps you'll buy me a virtual coffee. It's just a small payment to put towards the hosting costs. And if you'd like to read our 2002 Trail Journal, day by day on the Pacific Crest Trail, please head to pctpodcast.com, where there's a Kindle and other e-reader download for sale. There are links in the show notes. I'm Simon Willis. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.